What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Rocky Mountain Sports. I am Mike, and we are back talking about all this NBA drama. I know I'm a little bit late, but the Washington Wizards, I didn't think they were done after they traded their first guy, so I thought I'd wait until they were done all their trades. Hopefully they are, and hopefully by the time this video comes out, they're not completely just made more moves and flipped more people. But right now, we're going to make a video about the Washington Wizards trades. Let's start with the first one. The first one was Bradley Beal, Isaiah Todd, and Jordan Goodwin to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul and Landry Shamet. They also received a second round pick in 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2030. And there are pick swaps for 2024, 2026, 2028, and 2030. It's interesting that the Wizards couldn't get a non-swap first-round pick in this deal. Bradley Beal, obviously being the second most expensive player in the league, might not entice the Phoenix Suns to give up a first-round pick. But you're still bringing in a player that can definitely average 20 to 25 points for you and can just certifiably get buckets. So the fact that the Wizards couldn't get a first-round pick for Bradley Beal is very, very interesting. We will just skip the Porzingis trade for now and go straight to the Chris Paul trade. They then flipped Chris Paul to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, a protected first round pick in 2030, and a 2027 second round pick. And ESPN Zach Lowe says that 2030 first round pick is top 20 protected, and the Warriors are going to keep Chris Paul. So let's talk about this all in one. I think the Wizards, for the Bradley Beal trade, I think they take an L personally because they don't get any first round picks. I get that they got a bunch of second round picks and pick swaps. I don't know the details on the pick swaps, so I won't really comment on those. But the fact that you got six first or second round picks and you couldn't get a first round pick instead is kind of crazy to me. I think Bradley Beal is the type of player that could at least get you one first round pick. So even if it was one first round pick in maybe 3 seconds or something like that, I think that would have been more beneficial. But obviously, if you're the Phoenix Suns, this is an interesting idea to have three players like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. We're all really good at scoring the ball, but defense there may be a little bit to desire. And you pretty much traded all of your depth in here to do that. So pretty much, obviously the Kevin Durant trade, you traded a bunch of your depth. You traded Miles Bridges, you traded Cam Johnson, you traded just a bunch of pieces there. And then in this trade, you traded Landry Shamet away as well, who could have been a good piece to have off your bench. But now you have Bradley Beal, now you have Devin Booker, now you have Kevin Durant, Okogie, and DeAndre Ayton's your starting five, and I think that's a very, very good starting five. I don't think they're done. I think they will trade DeAndre Ayton within probably the next week or two. But if this is what you're going to roll out, it's hard to see how this team could potentially win it all without having that depth. So if any of those players are obviously all of them are sitting on the bench, who's going to step up for you where you really need it? If Bradley Beal or Kevin Durant obviously gets hurt a lot. So if there's injuries, who's going to step up for you if you don't have that? You can just have vet minimums at that point. But you don't really have players that can come in and lead your team in scoring or anything like that. If all three of these guys go down and DeAndre is down, or DeAndre is not that type of guy who, when push comes to shove, he's the only person who's not injured on your team. He's not going to be able to contribute like those three do. I think that's going to be a big issue for the Phoenix Suns going forward. So it'll be interesting to see what they potentially do with DeAndre Ayton. But as of right now, I don't quite understand them going all in like this without having any depth. It's shown in the past that depth is a huge part of winning a championship. So we'll see if it'll work out for them. They'll see this is a good experiment to have for the NBA, and it may make it so other teams do it as well. For the Wizards side of it, I like the idea of having Jordan Poole on your roster. He's gonna score. He's gonna probably average 25 points a game next year for the Washington Wizards. They don't really have that scoring touch now that they've traded obviously Porzingis and Bradley Beal and everybody. So having somebody like Jordan Poole on your roster is going to be huge for them. And I think that we'll talk about the other guard that they got in the other trade in a second. But I think that getting Jordan Poole and obviously a projected first and a second for Chris Paul is going to be huge for them. I think they won that trade in particular because I think Jordan Poole right now is better than Chris Paul. 37-year-old Chris Paul is probably coming off the bench for the Warriors. I don't see them playing Steph Curry, Chris Paul, and Klay Thompson all together. I think that the height there is just not going to be very good. Chris Paul is just not quite the same defensive player he once was. So I think that defensively, that's going to be a little bad. Although you might still have Draymond Green if he resigns to potentially be an anchor for you. I'm assuming that's what they're going for since they did trade Jordan Poole. Obviously, with the whole incident where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in the face, and there's a lot happening where it says that Jordan Poole was not good for the locker room. So obviously, there's a lot of toxic stuff going on about Jordan Poole being not great for a locker room. But even then, I think you probably could have got way more for Jordan Poole than just a Chris Paul type. They're again 37 years old. He's probably on his last season, if not his second last season, and he's only going to keep declining. I think he got a really bad season last year, and injuries are kind of catching up to him a little bit. So I think Golden State trade Washington is I think comes out as the winner in that one, and I think a lot of Warriors fans are scratching their head about the Chris Paul trade. So now let's go over to the Kristaps Porzingis trade. This trade is very interesting. Obviously, there was the first trade that sent them to Boston. The Clippers were involved in. It was Marcus Morris, I think, coming back to the Wizards. That trade was bonkers for so many reasons. I think Boston definitely won that one. I think this one is definitely more interesting. I think the fact that the Wizards are going to get Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, the 35th pick in the draft yesterday. I don't know who they drafted. I didn't really watch the draft, and I'll be honest, I don't really care about it. The Celtics get Kristaps Porzingis, the 25th pick, and a 2024 first-round pick from the Golden State Warriors, and the Grizzlies get Marcus Smart. It's interesting to see that the Celtics got 2 first-round picks in this trade and Porzingis, because I think Porzingis is better than Marcus Smart. So how did they get first-round picks? How did the Wizards not somehow get a first-round pick in this deal? Like they got the 35th pick, that's cool. But how did they not? It's like Kenny said. Shout out to Kenny. He said that like, how did one of these picks not make their way to Washington? Like it's really easy to just say, hey, it's Kristaps Porzingis, give us another first round, like give us a first round pick, you're getting 2. So like it's interesting to see that they couldn't quite get one. I like Tyus Jones as a starting point guard for the Washington Wizards. I think he brings a lot of good playmaking. I think he brings a lot to the table for this team as a kind of budding starting point guard. He's been great for the last couple of years for the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, Ja Morant's going to take that spot back after 25 games. So he said he wanted to be a starting point guard. He sent him to a team that's definitely going to need a starting point guard. Monte Morris is good off the bench, so I think that'll be a good 1-2 punch for the Wizards to have in the future. Muscala and Gallinari obviously bring shooting to the team. Obviously, I don't think they'll be on the team for very long if they're not waived or traded again or vice versa. So I think it's a very good trade for the Washington Wizards. The article I read earlier said they gave them an A. I would give them a B plus. I wouldn't quite give them an A. You didn't get a first round pick in the deal for Kristaps Porzingis, which I think was surprising considering the Celtics who got Kristaps also got first round picks on front of it for Marcus Smart, who I don't think deserves 2 first round picks for. So I think the fact that the Wizards couldn't get a first round pick couldn't quite get me to give them an A, but I give them a B plus for sure on this deal. And I think that for the rebuild so far, I think they're doing a pretty good job of getting pieces that are younger and going forward going to be better for them. After this, I'll kind of talk about what lineup they'll have going forward and stuff like that. The Celtics, obviously, they get Kristaps Porzingis. They get the 25th pick in the draft, like I said, and another first-round pick for Marcus Smart as well. I think it's a great pickup for the Celtics. Obviously, you lose a lot of identity by trading Marcus Smart, but bringing in somebody like Kristaps Porzingis who can spread the floor, so you're not relying so much on Al Horford to do that. You can play Robert Williams at the center, and then you can play Kristaps Porzingis at the 4. I think that'd be a really smart thing to do. And I think that it's just more shooting and more weapon for the Celtics to have. And I think Brad Stevens did a great job in this trade. The fact that you can get Kristaps Porzingis on a team that already has Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Robert Williams is obviously no slouch. You're able to keep a player like Malcolm Brogdon and still bring off your bench or potentially to start if you wanted to do that. It's just huge for a team like this. Obviously, Malcolm Brogdon's going through a lot of injuries right now. So we'll see what his playing time will be going forward. But for the Celtics, it's a huge trade for them. I give them an A+ absolutely for this trade. So that trade for the Celtics, absolute W. I think this will only make them better going forward. And for the Grizzlies, Marcus Smart, I think is very interesting for them. I think obviously you're losing Dillon Brooks, who brought a lot of intensity defensively. And obviously they have an identity issue where they're kind of being punks, if I'm being honest. They're being punks and they're trying their best to, be cool and be hip. And obviously John Morant's gonna be hurt for the first 25 games because of the gun stuff. And you need a player like Marcus Smart who's gonna come in and potentially smarten up this team. Pun intended, I guess. He's gonna come in and he's gonna be a great defensive player for this team. And I think that John Morant needs somebody to potentially hide his defensive issues. And I think Marcus Smart's a great job at that. Um, I think grit and grind is still very much in play for the Memphis Grizzlies that now have the last two defensive player of the years. So you can't go wrong with having that on your roster. Marcus Smart obviously is a step down from what he was last year already. But I think this upcoming year, I think he's going to be rejuvenated and ready to go. And he's going to embrace playing for a team like Memphis, who is grit and grind. And I think for them, I think this is a great trade as well. I just think that 2 first-round picks might be a little steep in this deal. So, you never know. Maybe Marcus Smart will help them get over the hump. But right now, I think he was not worth 2 first-round picks. But all this being said, I guess the question becomes, who is still on the Washington Wizards? So their starting 5, I think, at this point is going to be Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Deni Avdija. Don't know who's going to start at their 5. Maybe they re-sign Kyle Kuzma, or they try and bring in somebody else that can potentially play the 4 for him. So the 4, I'm not too sure about. But at the center, I think the big part of this in trading Porzingis is giving the opportunity for Daniel Gafford to potentially be a full-time starting center on your team. And I think that will be huge for them, I think, going forward as a young team trying to rebuild, because his defensive potential is very, very good, I think. The way that he's able to block shots, the way he's able to help defense-wise, and he's a kind of player that you can have as your anchor in a 2-3 zone, which I think could potentially be what the Wizards could do in the future. If not, he's also a great help defender. He's very good at getting easy shots in the paint when you need him to. He's a kind of a running gun guy. So somebody like Tyus Jones will very much appreciate somebody like Daniel Gafford running the floor for him and stuff like that. So I think the Wizards overall, I think they did a pretty good job rebuilding their team here. They brought in somebody who can shoot and get baskets in Jordan Poole. They have a floor general now in Tyus Jones. He's going to come in and kind of be a vocal leader, because a lot of players on this team are going to be young now, 24, 25-ish to younger. So I think somebody like Tyus Jones, who's 27, can come in and kind of be an anchor for you. But I'm glad they're doing this, because they were so mediocre for so long. They had to rely on Bradley Beal. They kept bringing in pieces like Kyle Kuzma and Porzingis to try to win, but they were never good enough to really get anywhere from there. So they could potentially make the play-in or make the playoffs, but they wouldn't get past the play-in or the first round or anything, and not really be competitive in those series. So that being said, it's kind of good now that they're kind of resetting now and showing that they can finally rebuild, because they've needed it for so long. They've needed it since John Wall left, honestly. Since John Wall went down with his injury, they could have rebuilt then. But, they brought in Russell Westbrook. They did a bunch of things that they didn't really need to do, and they finally hit the reset button. And thank God they did, because Washington fans, they definitely need it. So shout out to the Wizards for finally rebuilding. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you all later.